Hello and welcome to Well Played. I'm your host Bluetongue. From around Sydney, Australia, I am also joined by our hosts. From Gladesville, we have Bauxite. How are you doing, Baux?
I'm doing really well. I've been playing a lot of Minecraft this week. Me and my wife had set up a server, and we've been having a really good time. She's been automating all of the systems and growing carrots in really unique ways involving villages and stuff, which is cool. And I've been digging out the ground like dirt is awesome or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Cool. What do you do with all the carrots after they're grown?
We feed them to rabbits, and then we kill the rabbits and take their feet.
And what are those for?
Oh, potions. Naturally.
Oh, of course. How foolish of me.
That's right. No, you totally need rabbit's feet. They're an important resource.
Yep. Good. All right. From the Blue Mountains, we've got Cam. How are you doing, Cam?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. I never myself quite got into the Minecraft thing, but I have the copy of the game, so maybe I need to jump on board your game there and also start harvesting rabbit's feet or whatever required it is that you do in that game.
I'm told that the done thing is after you've started and figured out the game, roughly speaking, you then need to construct a 12-story high giant golden...
We don't have that much gold.
Ah.
That's the only flaw in that plan, sorry.
That is deeply disappointing.
Yes.
All right. From the hills, we've got Harrow. How are you doing, Harrow?
I'm now thinking of 12-story tall golden pieces. Thank you very much.
Tell the truth, you would have anyway.
What was the Austin Powers movie, Goldmember? Yes, I'm great. I'm going to read from my notes now. I'm still steadily working my way through Nightwing, finished the Chuck Dixon run, onto the Devin Grayson run. I recently read chapter 79, which had Deathstroke fighting Nightwing and Cassandra Cain, and I didn't know who I wanted to win because all three of those characters are awesome.
So I had forgotten that Devin Grayson had a run on Nightwing, and I'm trying to think of what she's doing now or anything like that, but what's her run been like so far?
A bit whiny, but it's having its moments.
Sure. I mean, Chuck Dixon, how long was he on Nightwing for? I think it was a fairly lengthy kind of...
It was a while. I couldn't tell you when the handoff was, though. Sorry, yeah, but it was for a while.
I think I'm Facebook friends with him or something like that. It's one of those times you add a quasi-celebrity, or celebrity in his case, on Facebook, so I could always go ask him something like that. But,
yeah, I'm sure he'll totally answer you.
Yeah. He does like these Q&A sessions on there all the time. But so is the change off noticeable? I mean, sometimes you have these runs where there's such a jerk, such a kind of change in tone that it's incredibly noticeable. But has that happened so far, or?
I think, no offense to Miss Devon, but I think her run's a bit less fun. But well, no, they're different. Look at it this way. One's about, Chuck's was about growing up and leaving the Bat's shadow, and this one's about, I don't know, the consequences of being a vigilante, which has also been done to death in Batman anyway. So, yeah, they're different animals. How you doing, Blue?
I'm doing pretty well. I've been playing The Division this week, so I've sunk about 10 hours in the last 2 days, which is essentially all of my spare time. It's tons of fun, and I haven't been, I haven't had really negative experiences yet, surprisingly. I think that needs to sort of really be built within the game community. Like, you know how that after a while, everyone will just start punishing you for no reason. If you're a new player, that person must be punished. So we're not quite at that stage yet, and everyone's still quite generally friendly and is getting their head around the game, so... Yeah, I spent my first day guiding a new player through the actual game and telling them how it all works. And then I spent my second day running around in the Dark Zone with a group of strangers who didn't backstab me. I was kind of surprised.
So your feedback so far is great experience, but needs more backstabbing?
Well, ironically...
No one's called me a fag in 12 hours. Hang on.
This is very upsetting. Ironically, the game is, the best way I can describe it, is a blend between Gears of War meets Assassin's Creed.
That doesn't sound like anything that you would be into at all.
Yeah, it's exactly my kind of game in that way, and it's got lots of gear and loot and stuff like that for me to entertain myself with collecting. So I'm looking forward to getting into the higher tiers of gear and running around to collect those perfect items and stuff. It's going to be good fun. I also picked up a new iPhone 6s Plus today, which is exciting as well. So I've got that to play with this evening once we finished recording. Have you guys acquired any of the new Plus style of iPhones at all?
No.
I haven't, but I've seen it's a lot wider. And have you had a chance to really get into that yet, or is it still something that's very much waiting for you?
No, it's still waiting. It's brand spanking new box basically, but it's got a longer battery life and a larger screen, and that's literally all that it's got.
Yeah.
Compared to just the 6S. And the thing that kind of tipped me over in the favor of the larger one is the fact that I can now use this to watch Twitch at night without pinching my wife's iPad mini, and I can use it to watch TV shows and movies on the train without feeling ridiculously small. So, yeah.
It's kind of your iPad mini.
Yeah, it's significantly smaller than an iPad, but still it's got more functionality, and it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. So, as a quick explanation of what the podcast is about, we're in the business of sharing comic books, graphic novels, movies, TV shows, computer games, and board games we enjoy with our listeners. For those of you who are already aware of the subjects, hopefully we can give you all a deeper insight into what it's about.
All right, topic 1 is Frank Miller's iconic Batman story, The Dark Knight Returns. Written in a time when comics were all lighthearted and silly and jokey and just aimed at kids, Frank Miller took made a serious story about the Dark Knight that was aimed at adults, showing just how screwed up in the head the Batman really is. The story is about a mentally damaged Batman returning to the streets after 10 years of retirement to defend a city that has just gotten worse and worse, more crime, more corruption in his absence, and it is the most brutal Batman that had been written to date.
So those of you not familiar with the story, The Dark Knight Returns is the story of Batman coming back after a lengthy absence. He's aged for a long time of not being Batman, both physically and mentally. He's now about 56, 57 years old and is returning to a Gotham that has been ravaged by the lack of a Batman to protect it. So in his absence, there's been a new gang called the Mutants that has risen up, and Gotham's worse than ever before. So it's kind of meant to be the last ever Batman story, and in true comic book form, it has 2 sequels.
Yes, it also shows that's the first half, Batman dealing with this new generation of crime, this new generation of criminals and gangsters. Second half of the movie is about how Batman responds to authority and when the government tries to shut him down, and then his ending with a clash with Superman at the end. So yes, your initial thoughts on the book, gentlemen?
Let's start with Cam.
Okay, so basically, my first encounter with this one was a long time ago when Wizard was a thing. Wizard, the comics magazine, they went into a whole bunch of the Batman's best moments, and this had a whole bunch of them. Obviously, the famous moment where he knocks down Superman, the time when he brings back the bat symbol, the iconic way in which he faced his death at the end of the story. There's so much to go into with this one in terms of my initial expectations and kind of the way that I was reading it. I think it's the difficulty with this one. You touched on it in your introduction there. Mm-hmm. But basically, reading something like this out of context, we're living in a time after this story. So, all the cultural impact that this had, you kind of really had to be there to grasp the full kind of context of the thing. So I think, unfortunately, it doesn't have the same kind of impact now as it would have when it was released. I think we take it for granted now, but yeah, definitely quite a dense read.
Yeah. What happens in that book? Bluetongue?
Well, that's interesting because without that knowledge of that's where this comic is coming from, I didn't really appreciate a lot of the content of it. That said, I also don't have the vast history of Batman and everything else. and but that does make a lot more sense as to why it's important, or why you guys see it as one of the best Batman comic books, based on the fact that it was very groundbreaking for when it was released. Whereas looking at it retrospectively, it's not got that same nostalgia value for the non-Batman fans.
Okay, so you don't. I'm not gonna say you're reading it wrong, but it doesn't. The craziness of Batman doesn't strike you. To me, that sort of still holds up today. That he's just as nuts then as he was when it was originally written, and yeah, I think that part still holds up.
To a certain extent. That said, I've never really considered Bruce Wayne to be, the most psychologically sound characters.
I don't know, man. I think he's got really something pretty sane going on there, dressing up as a bat and dancing around punching people.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point, though, that we're getting at, which is the dancing around punching people. That's the 1960s Batman, the Batman that had become so kind of prominent. This is Frank Miller essentially flipping that Batman, the extended middle finger, kind of moving away to his darker roots. But did you sort of have a chance, I guess, Bauxite, to read this, and what did you think when you did?
Yeah, I read it, and it didn't grip me, and there were a couple of reasons why. Yeah, I've seen this style of dark, brooding Batman before. I mean, Chris Nolan obviously drew some inspiration from this because, his movies have this all over them. So, yeah. And, I've seen some of these scenes acted out in things like the trailer for the new Batman vs. Superman. It's basically lifted directly from these pages. So, seeing Batman fight Superman in his big hulky suit, that's something I'm already somewhat familiar with. I expect to see that in more detail when the movie comes out. But it didn't grip me. And look, the art style was a little bit muted for me. It wasn't the super colourful sort of comics that I prefer, being the Marvel fan that I am. And the story was, like you said, really frickin' dark. And it just wasn't, I guess, what I was in the mood for at the time. And maybe if I had seen it 10 or 15 years ago, I might have been a bit more receptive. But yeah, today, not so much.
It feels to me to be quite dense. Is that a fair assessment of this?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a very fair assessment.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I was sort of looking forward to, a quick page turner, lots of visual stimulation and stuff like that. I did not get that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we are living in, I guess, the post-image age of comic books where we're used to that. It's visually appealing. It's back in the 90s, you had a lot of splash pages. That was when I was starting with reading comics, and this is nothing like that at all. The art style, I was initially, when I was a kid, off put by this art style, but I appreciate that more now. Frank Miller's work.
Okay. See, Frank Miller's style that didn't work for me the first time. The style in this didn't work for me the first time I read it, or the most recent time. I'm a bit with Borks on that. The art style doesn't really work for me. But also at the time, though, this was a totally different way of animating of drawing Batman. So it was groundbreaking at the time. But I'd say that part of the book doesn't hold up so much today.
In terms of that, Batman himself doesn't get a whole heap of screen time on this, to be perfectly honest. More than half the pages are filled with pictures of television screens.
Oh my goodness, the television screens.
Yeah, that was pretty hard going for me.
So this is one of those times when we see the kind of difference between reading it as a graphic novel over and against reading it in its serialized once a month kind of thing. I've read this story in one sitting, just like I did Watchmen, and it was a real head spin like that. But if you space that out over the course of a month, then it's a little bit less of a dense read. But yeah, definitely, that was one element that I personally kind of appreciated. Or had these talking heads talking about the action, and that was to do, I think, a little bit with the world they were trying to create, some of the social commentary they were trying to make with this one.
It's got to do with pacing. That's how Frank Miller paced his individual chapters. It would start with 16 frames to a page and then would get faster and faster to build up pace, build up tension, etc. The rule of thumb I use when reading a comic is when you get to one of those 12, 16, 25 frame pages, this is when the author wants you to slow down. This can't be something you plow through. You need to stop, take a breath, clear your mind for a second, and then sort of read it a bit slower. That's what the author is aiming for when you've got one of those really packed pages.
Yeah, so I think I probably, inverted commas, read it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably should have spent more time on this, but just this week it didn't happen to work out for me. So
Yeah, I'm probably in the same situation, and I was hoping for something, yes, Christopher Nolan-esque, but at the Christopher Nolan, even the movies seem to have a fairly good pacing. There's like good sequences of action. You get the bit of backstory, and then followed by more action and more brooding and whatever else. Whereas this just felt like even the action sequences just felt a little bit labored.
well, yeah, but I think what these guys are saying is that instead of going to a Christopher Nolan movie, we've just sat down and watched a whole season of Jessica Jones in one sitting.
Yeah, kind of
I'd say
fun. Yeah.
like Sherlock. Each chapter's 50-something pages. More like a season of Sherlock than a season like I'd say more 4 big episodes than 16 smaller ones, if that makes sense.
I think
Sure.
it's one of those things where, we've had the Batman films by Nolan. We've had the source material that has been used in all those ways. There's a very good animated series or animated movie. It's in 2 parts that they quite literally lifted from this story. My point I was trying to make in a roundabout way was we've taken all these story elements or seen them adapted. This is the source material, so it may not hold up perhaps as well as it would have in its original context. It does kind of require you to know a little bit of that backstory, but I think worth crediting it for what it was and for its contribution.
The 2 animated movies aren't giving you the insight that the book does. That's my biggest problem with the movies.
Yeah, I can see that.
This speaks as to my ignorance as to whether or not what I'm probably referring to is the TV series. That's the bits and snippets that I've seen like on and off over the years.
Okay.
Whereas, yeah, the movies, no, not at all.
Okay. So you didn't watch the 2 animated Dark Knight Returns movies?
No.
Okay. That's good. I was afraid you and Borks were going to cheat and go, no, I just watched the movie, I didn't read the book. Like, No.
Wait, there's a movie? Damn it! We could have cheated.
You see, that's what I did in year 12 when I was asked to read Pride and Prejudice and Macbeth. So I just, that I'm just going to read the book. Watch the movie. Yeah, it's so much easier.
Okay, moving on. Cam, you're a well-read individual. Can you think of any other Batman story which sort of highlights the damaged mental state of Batman better than The Dark Knight Returns?
So something that we talk about Batman stories that arguably do not hold up today, but sort of give a lot to the present state of the character in the series would have to be Grant Morrison, his Batman Arkham. I wanted to say Arkham Knight, but I'm actually the Arkham Asylum. Yeah, the Arkham Asylum series turned into a graphic novel. That one, that was quite intense. That was actually more dense than this one. I don't entirely recommend it. It's not my favorite Batman story, but that goes into the psyche pretty well. Some of the stories that were before this that were not as dense, but certainly went into that side of the character a little bit, were the 1970s Batman by, I know Denny O'Neil was responsible for part of that. I think he's the artist on the series, but they, where they had the death of the second Robin.
Oh, A Death in the Family.
A Death in the Family, and some of those stories were kind of not as intense as this, but they certainly went into a little bit of the darker shades of the character. As far as stuff to recommend after this goes, there's some dark stories that I think hold up a little bit better, like The Long Halloween, Dark Victory.
Yep, hold up better. See, I'm probably going to have to hand in my Batman nerd card for this one. Long Halloween and Dark Victory, They're murder mysteries. I loved them the first time I read them, but rereading them, you're not getting the same value on a reread as you are going to get from Dark Knight Returns.
And in having said that too, we talk about how these stories give us stuff that gets lifted, and so many elements to The Long Halloween became part of that second Nolan Batman movie, The Dark Knight. So yeah, again,
see it. Explain it to me like I'm an idiot. So
okay.
Me.
Well, I won't explain it to you like an idiot, but if you hadn't read,
No, just explain it to him like you normally would.
Yeah. Go. I've read Long Halloween. I've read
yeah.
I've seen The Dark Knight, but I really don't see the connections there.
Sure. So the story of Two-Face, it's definitely like this kind of retelling of Two-Face's origin story, and in the way in which Dark Knight tells that story about how he came about, it is quite a little bit different to Long Halloween, but Long Halloween is a murder mystery which went into how it was that Two-Face came about, and so some of those elements there, some of the ways the story is told. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's without the Dark Knight doesn't have the same killer that strikes on holidays and stuff like that, but some of those elements from his origin story are retold. It's probably the best way I can think about it. I probably have to go back and read it again, ironically enough.
See, for me, the Long Halloween was about Harvey Dent was cracking. He was slipping under the strain, and then the acid in the face was the final snap.
Yeah.
And in this one, Harvey Dent was the White Knight, and he was the White Knight pretty much the whole way until Joker got to him.
Sure. I mean, some of the ways that he spoke, though, about, what did they used to call me, the whole Harvey Two-Face thing and stuff. There were elements there that, yeah, definitely they will retell the origin in different, slightly nuanced ways. But I think some of the material, I definitely think that this would be one of the stories that they read.
Oh, they read it, sure. But, I mean, Batman Year One and Batman Begins are extremely similar. But, I don't see it between Long Halloween and The Dark Knight. Anyway, let's move on. We could spend an entire podcast talking about the Nolan Batman trilogy.
And that might be an idea for a future episode.
But we'll put that on the list. Okay.
I will do my homework for that one.
Returning though here to the story at hand, this was meant to be the last Batman story. It's meant to close off Bruce Wayne's story. We know now that wasn't to be, and that they actually had two sequels to this last ever story. But if we just look at it through that lens for a little while, how do you guys think this story was, as far as being a story that kind of ends Bruce Wayne's role as Batman, functions as the last ever Batman story?
After I read it, part of me wanted, essentially for Superman to grow up, for Superman to stop being the puppet. That's something I would have liked to have seen them explore further, and they don't. Well, I haven't read Master Race. Is that addressed in the Master Race?
I'm not that far through it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's on issue 3 at the moment, thereabouts. And
Really? It'd be further than that.
In terms of where I'm at. I mean, but yeah, certainly the criticism there is one of how, I guess, Frank Miller handles other characters other than Batman.
Yeah. Oh, well, to be fair, everyone works for the Batman. Everyone does, regardless of how minor a character you are in the DC universe, you work for Batman.
I don't know, man. I reckon you work for Flash. Flash is... Yeah, no, everyone's friends with Flash. Everyone's manipulated by Batman in some way. But no, everyone's friends with Flash. Flash is the central character in the DC universe easily.
That was actually a point that they made with the Flashpoint series, but I wonder if taking one or another character and saying they're the central character sort of serves to take away from the way in which this myriad kind of web of characters and how they function. This was like the first of what turned out to be 3 stories later. Did you guys have a chance to see any of that other material of the sequel to this?
I did
read
not.
Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Yep.
No, I didn't get a chance. I barely got through this, to be perfectly honest. It was hard going for me, and what you guys mentioned earlier makes it a bit clearer why that was.
Yep.
I can see this as being something that is beneficial to come back to. It's
Yes.
that book or that comic with a decent amount of depth that when you reread it, you'll appreciate something else about it.
Yeah, look, let it gestate, go back to it in a month, and see if you get more out of it.
Yeah. That said, I feel like that a good author will grab you regardless of how dry his content is and how dense it is and stuff like that. A good author will still be able to present it in an entertaining way.
Okay. Because even the first time I read it, it had me gripped because I wasn't reading it like the way I told you to read it. I was reading it in one go, and I still got gripped because the book does a good job of making. It's going to sound cliche, but Gotham City is a character. It shows you what it throws in. It's showing you its decline. It shows you its struggles, and that's actually what drew me in. Just watching how this hole is getting even worse. So that drew me in.
Yeah.
On my first reading.
But then there's also the history that you have with the actual character and reading the other comics and stuff like that.
That is the first Batman comic I ever read.
Oh, really? Okay.
Really.
Yeah. The way that you guys were talking about at the start, it sounded like this had been like one after a significant chunk of Batman history, if you will.
Yeah, well, certainly the character had started off as a fairly dark kind of character and had, become more camp, more comic, so to speak, after that 1960s animated show. This was kind of a return to the darker sort of elements of that character, but definitely I can see someone reading this now having maybe seen Batman movies or the Batman TV shows that have come since and, return to that and see the elements there. But certainly, I think the way in which Batman is depicted in Frank Miller's works has progressively become like more of this particular take on the character. Did you guys see any differences here as far as how Batman's portrayed in this compared to some of the other books or films or what have you?
Yes, to repeat what I said earlier, this is showing you showing you at his most damaged.
Is the implication that he's become much more damaged with age, even after going into retirement?
The implication is he was always damaged, but without the outlet, more and more of it comes. But without the outlet of being, to me anyway, he was always damaged, but without the outlet of being Batman, his psyche's going to crack further and further, and he's going to, that's how he copes. And when he retired, he couldn't cope. And it describes, you tried drowning me out with loud. He's in a bat demon. Describes, you tried drowning me out with loud noises and alcohol, but I can't be drowned out.
Yeah, it's just like the very first piece of knowledge we have about Bruce Wayne, or that I have, is essentially him as a child seeing his parents get murdered.
Yeah.
And the psychological effect that has on him at that point. And the Batman persona becoming a embodiment of his frustration / fury at that actually taking place. And that, in a way, is reflective of not just the comic character, but a real-life person who'd had that experience.
Or any traumatic experience?
Yeah, well, there's a vast variety of traumatic experiences, and that they'll have different effects on different people. But this is just like one sort of example of that, and it's sort of interesting to see how that is expressed in this comic.
I think something that we see later with Frank Miller's stuff, but definitely is present here, is he actually goes on to call him this in All-Star Batman and Robin, which was panned, but he refers to himself as the goddamn Batman. And I think the way that Frank Miller writes the character, the way that he acts, he's a bit more of a jerk than a lot of the other mainline portrayals of Batman. And yeah, that can potentially be off-putting. In this, he snaps someone's leg, and someone reacts to it. I can't remember who, and he said, "Oh, he's young, he'll walk again."
No, he'll probably walk again.
Yeah, probably walk again. Yeah, I found that a little bit like off-putting as far as this went. And it becomes more resonant as it kind of goes. So later on, when you do read All-Star Batman and Robin, Batman's just about an out-and-out fascist.
Yeah.
I actually was one of the few people that seems to have enjoyed that series somewhat. But again, Frank Miller's awful to a lot of other characters in it. Yeah, there's a particular kind of violence to this series that you don't always see in Batman, despite it being a more violent series.
See, I think that's probably the downside with how Frank Miller treats the character, that it's a persona he has to adopt. And what I like about more of the mainstream continuity is that, no, he's Batman. Bruce Wayne is the disguise. And in Frank Miller's work, Batman is an ego he puts on.
Yeah.
The character he becomes. So yeah, I think that would be the only thing I don't like about the way he writes Batman. Frank Miller writes Batman. But to be fair, when he wrote Year One, it was the origin story. Anyway.
Another influential Batman tale, which kind of brings me to another point here, which is part of the podcast where we go into, if you like this, what else should you read? What would you recommend for readers or for readers of Batman or listeners of the podcast in general to chase down?
Look, if you like Dark Knight Returns, Batman Year One, same author, obviously. You touched on it as well, a look into Batman's psyche of Batman Arkham, a serious story for a serious Earth. Batman Hush, Hush does a good job of showing you different villains as a reflection of Batman's psyche. Batman Rest in Peace, or R.I.P., shows you just how deep his obsession is and how far he goes as Batman. What were some ones you'd recommend, Cam?
Kingdom Come.
Good choice.
Again, another dense read, and one that it's like in many ways like Watchmen. You can't read the whole thing in one sitting, and there's a lot of other elements to it. Some people think it's too dense for that matter, or suffers under its own weight, but the Batman elements of that story are well told. And yeah, I've mentioned it before, but Long Halloween and its follow-up, Batman Dark Victory.
Before we move on, there's one other thing I wanted to discuss, if I can find in the notes. Yeah, something this book does so well is that, to me, it shows why a confrontation between Batman and not why they would fight, it shows why it's inevitable, why they will eventually have to come to blows. Did you guys get that from the book, or you think I'm reading too much into it?
Batman and who? You missed out an entire preface. Oh, Superman, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, look. I guess any characters with major dominant personalities are always going to come to blows, regardless of if they're on the same side as in fighting for justice and good or not.
Okay.
That's kind of how I feel about the situation. So, just for example, the first Avengers movie, perfect illustration of how people hypothetically on the same side, who do even end up on the same side, spend half a movie fighting one another because of the way that their personalities interact.
Okay, but this is a clash of personality. I think the Dark Knight shows that this is a clash not of personality but of ethos. This is what's going to bring them to blows. What you're describing is just a couple of alpha males having a scuffle.
But it's not really. I think the point made here more, though, is that they're both strong personalities, but not just they're both alphas, it's also a thing there that their ethos, their persona, who they are as characters really is not diametrically opposed, but you know what I mean, that they are characters that are vastly different, but both very strong personalities, both leaders. So it's who they are that will eventually come to blows, and by being so very different but so very strong.
I think we're seeing the same thing happen in Captain America: Civil War.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Aren't you a little concerned that the joke, quip, put a button on everything can actually give you the gravity of a battle of ideals of brother fighting brother. Do you think I'm a bit worried about Civil War, but I'm guessing you guys aren't?
I'm personally not at all worried about Civil War.
Okay.
I am and have been for a while worried about how it is that Snyder's going to take the story we've been talking about Batman vs Superman in this upcoming film. But am I the only one that's worried about that one?
Yeah, see, when I look at Civil War and what we've seen of it so far, it fills me with, oh wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Whereas I've seen what we've got with the Batman Superman trailer, and I've just gone, oh, I don't know how I'm feeling about this already. So it's not necessarily the content and the characters which is doing that for me. Probably it's just the presentation, which is mostly what a trailer will bring to you.
Look, we've had several movies to get acquainted with Captain America and Iron Man and their personalities. We've had this particular conflict seeded in Age of Ultron and also in the first Avengers movie. This is not a new concept to us. But Batman vs Superman, it's like this is not a new Superman, but it is a new Batman. And it seemingly comes out of nowhere. So I think he's got his work cut out for him to start the conflict and resolve it within one movie.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a very ambitious film. No, even the most hardcore DC fanboy will admit that.
I'm glad that you can admit that, Harrow.
Yeah. Here, is it like, I mean, it's sold to us as Batman versus Superman, but there is that subtitle, The Dawn of Justice. Now, the story is going to start with this clash of ideals and with the Dark Knight taking on this Kryptonian god who he wants, if he does nothing else, he wants to be known as the one that reined him in, prevented this threat to humanity. It seems to me, though, that as a vehicle toward the Justice League series that we're going to get, it's going to have a little bit of a bait and switch element to it. We're going to start with that conflict, but it will end in some unified Justice League thing. Am I the only one reading it that way, that maybe we're not going to get the confrontation we're after?
No, well, we're not going to get it for the full movie. They'll be best buddies before the third act when the big bad comes along and unites them.
What I'm hoping for is, there's a unified threat, but we're still going to solve our differences. My greatest fear for this movie is, they're pegging this Batman versus Superman. They're hashtagging who will win. The trailer, the greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. So help me, if it's a draw, I'm going to be so pissed.
Look, the same thing will happen in Batman vs Superman as happened in this. Batman will win, and he'll say to Clark, I could have killed you, but I didn't.
Yeah, because I think the worst thing they can do for this film is make it a draw or make them put aside their differences and then fight someone else. This movie needs to have a winner.
Look,
otherwise,
I think they both need to come to understand that the real threat here is Wonder Woman.
Okay, so I think you've already answered this, but having read The Dark Knight Returns and Snyder saying he's taking a lot of inspiration from that, does reading Dark Knight Returns make you want to see Batman vs Superman more, or has it made you more worried, like, no, Snyder's moving away too much from the material, or he's taking too many liberties, or how does it make you feel in regards to the upcoming movie?
You sound like my psychologist, dude. How do you feel about this? Look, I think, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm not the biggest DC fanboy. I don't like how they reboot their so far to date, rebooted their universe with every single new movie. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine. I would actually prefer Christian Bale as the Batman and have it tie in with Christopher Nolan's movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I second that.
As one fan theory had it that it did.
Yeah, I read that. I think that's pretty much being debunked.
Yeah.
But it's a nice thought. But no, they're rebooting after those perfectly great Batman movies, and they didn't need to do that. They really could have salvaged that material, brought it into the Superman, Man of Steel movies universe with no problem at all. I really would have liked them to do that.
See, I disagree with you on that one, but that's okay.
I'm glad it's okay.
I fully agree with Bauxite. And not necessarily, obviously, I'm not the world's biggest DC fanboy either, but just I like to see continuity in this sort of thing, and I guess that's part of the huge appeal of the Avengers series and stuff for me.
But doesn't that also argue counter to your point? You want continuity. As opposed to having to shoehorn Man of Steel and Nolan's Batman together, they're going to give you a fresh Batman where nothing needs to be retconned, nothing needs to be shoehorned. They're making them to work. They're making them together in continuity from I want to say step one because we had Man of Steel, from step two.
If it's written well enough, it's possible to blend movies like that together.
Yeah, you hear about 21 Jump Street and Men in Black.
I actually don't think that's a terrible idea, honestly. But look, this, Batman vs Superman and actually Dark Knight Returns comic seem to fit really well. At the end of the third Batman, Dark Knight Rises, he's gone into retirement. You know, he's sipping champagne with Catwoman in Paris. Good on him. That's the same way this story starts. I could actually really see Snyder pulling that material, and it's not exactly shoehorning it in. It's not a great stretch at all.
I would have
see that totally working.
I mean, a point that Snyder has made is the reason that you do not see Christian Bale as Batman is this is a completely different world that they're created. They're doing the new universe building from the start. But if it were up to me, I would just throw some conscious winks to that just to reward the fans that have followed this story along. Just, you know, an odd Bruce Wayne saying I should never have come back to this, but otherwise not overindulging in it.
How about this question, though? Is this a good place to start a universe? Is it good to start with a major conflict between two of the most major characters that they have available to them? Like, comparatively speaking, you've got Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America before we even look at the Avengers.
Yep.
They did their groundwork for years and years before they brought up the Civil War.
Yeah.
Dare I say it, though, that part of my sole reservation with Civil War is I could have actually gone for some more build-up here. I mean, we're going to have what's meant to be this gut-wrenching battle between two brothers, but really we haven't had a whole lot of movies where we've seen them get along, where we've seen them as friends. Like I don't know, I feel a little bit like we see too much by way of superheroes fighting each other nowadays anyway. But look at Marvel's upcoming Civil War 2 Electric Boogaloo story that I think that no one asked for. I was not asking for this anyway. It's been done to death. But look, when it comes to this film in general, the latest trailer has me hyped as far as Batman vs Superman goes. The more recent trailers have made me a little bit optimistic. Batman himself, so Batfleck, you know, Ben Affleck, while dressed up as Batman on set, did several rewrites of the script, and apparently brought in his Argo co-writers to work on this. So I have faith in that a little bit, not so much in Snyder himself as a filmmaker. Not a fan of his. I don't have faith in him to bring this about, so we'll see.
So you didn't like another one he did, 300?
No, I did not.
Okay.
So that's another one by Frank Miller as well, by the way. But it just struck me as a crypto-fascist story, if you can call it a story, visual semi-homoerotic gore-fest.
Yeah, in part. I like to think of it as a visual expression of a graphic novel, though, more than anything else. So
it had a cool style, I have to admit. And
yeah, like he brought a graphic novel style to the movie screen, which had never been really done before. So
yeah. I mean, the other one that they did that with, and another Frank Miller story that I thought I enjoyed a bit more was Sin City, which
that was wonderful.
I put my hand up here as being a complete hypocrite. Here I am praising the animated movie of Batman while knocking Watchmen. I'm saying that it was crypto-fascist 300 while I loved Sin City. So, you know, I'm a hypocrite when it comes to my taste.
Oh, look, entertainment's subjective. You can totally be hypocritical.
Lucky for you.
Yeah. And no one can tell you you're wrong. I will after we stop recording, though. It's fine.
Thanks for joining us this week. We hope you've enjoyed yourselves as much as we have. You can catch us on Twitter at wellplayedau. You can send us questions, comments, or reviews at wellplayed@gmail.com. And if you like us, please leave us a 5-star review. See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.